Give you a test of who we deal with when we travel the world and what tools and ideas and geniuses available amongst the people you are mingling here for the next few days. Cynthia, please.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Phillips. I'm the founder and CEO of the Disruptive Factory. And we take people from inspiration into action, whether you're a company that's a startup with a brilliant idea that's going to make a dent in the universe, or you're a filmmaker, or you've just got something important to do. We're here to help, and we do that with a lot of different entrepreneurs who are addressing a lot of the issues in the SDGs. So, and we also do have a media company. It's called the Experience Factory within this, and what we hope to do is inspire people with the stories to get them to choose to participate in the brilliant vision of YK Center.
Can you, I think you want to talk about the...
I'm allowed?
Yeah.
Okay.
About the...
Turkey. Yeah, oh, good.
Yeah, Turkey.
Okay, great. And somebody had a great question about metrics and sustainability metrics along this. I'm here with Tony Wines, who's the founder and chair of the Turnkey Group, which is really looking at the SDGs context of gathering the information and the data. And it's a solution we're in discussions with the YK Center to be partners. And it is an excellent solution at the very granular level of looking at the carbon footprint, water, governance, the ESG, the environmental, social, and governance issues. Okay?
Yes, and Judy Perez from the state of Colorado, Roadmap for the Future, going to share about what she does, but mainly how you bring the SDGs into the K-12 education and some other technological ideas. Judy, please.
Hi, so as Tal said, my name is Judy Perez. I come from the education sector. Actually, I consider myself a career-long educator. I came into the space creating a nonprofit and also a for-profit working with in the international space. What we do is we are actually working at the ground level with teachers and educators, changing and shifting mindsets. It's incredibly difficult to work in this space. As you can imagine, education is usually lagging and kind of the last sector to move forward in just about any initiative or program. So we start with teacher training from the ground up, from the teachers who are most adverse to change. And we leverage technology at the same time, putting them in these environments in which they will eventually use for instructional practice and working with children. We must bring the K-12 sector along if we want change to be sustainable and for the future. Our partnership with YK Center actually kind of came from our work with state government. And we created a roadmap for the state of Colorado in blended and personalized learning. In that roadmap, what we were able to do was create a bill that actually became law. And so all of the services that we provide with guidance through consulting, teacher training, and creating free digital content that's available for any student, any teacher around the world is funded through the state government. And so with our partnership, what we're looking to do is incorporate the SDGs into our training so that teachers, as they are learning not only how to innovate and use technology in a quality environment, and it's not just about them looking at a screen or the students looking at a screen, but really, really incorporating the guidance of a quality, well-trained teacher in the area of technology and the SDGs to then incorporate this into the K-12 curriculum, not just throughout the United States, but globally. From a grassroots effort, we're working in other countries, which kind of came, I don't know, it's serendipitous, but we are working in South America. We have some work in Africa. We are starting work in Switzerland, and it keeps going now with our partners in Israel.
Let's jump to the other side. I'm going to come back to you. Dr. Roger Stein. Roger, please share about your project and the whole financial idea through the health project and the project.
I want to thank the YK Center for inviting me and also for organizing this marketplace. It's very much in line with a lot of the types of research that I've been working on for the last several years with colleagues at the Laboratory of Financial Engineering at MIT. Where I have a position and I also teach at NYU. I also worked for about 30 years in risk management and finance, and I ran what's called quant groups, groups of researchers that focus on the risks inherent in different kinds of assets. And one of the projects, I think this is one you want me to talk about, one of the projects that we undertook at MIT is to look at whether it was possible to create securities that look like the types of securities that insurance companies and pension funds currently buy, but that had as underlying assets things like research on cancer or solar energy or things like that. And over the last 8 or 9 years, we've published a bunch of papers and done some research that shows that, in fact, you can structure securities this way and that they're not social impact investments in the traditional sense, in that there is no need to give up any yield. In fact, these are very often attractive to portfolios for a variety of reasons, and they can return yields that are competitive or sometimes better than what pension funds are currently expecting now. And so we did this work, and we've extended in a number of different areas, and now this work is a much more general approach that we've developed for looking at long-shot investments, or investments that have long-term payoffs, or very risky undertakings. And the approaches that we developed are really, I think, useful not for any specific business model, although we propose a couple of business models as well, but rather as an overlay to any business model that wishes to use the less expensive debt financing as a replacement for the more expensive and dilutive equity financing. So I'd be happy to talk to you all about that later if you're interested.
Hi, Yossi Abramowitz. I'm an impact investor. I put together the team that created the solar power industry in the state of Israel, deployed $400 million, 8 commercial scale solar fields. We know how to de-risk and be able, these are actually very secure. These are cash producing assets with essentially sovereign guarantees. We took that learning. Israel's a small market, and we're deploying now in sub-Saharan Africa the first commercial scale solar field that was interconnected in sub-Saharan Africa was in Rwanda. We're doing 6% of Rwanda's power. In 2 weeks, I hope, we're signing for 15% of Burundi's, 25% of Liberia's, 200% of a certain state in West Africa that I can't name publicly, et cetera. But basically, I think when you look at the platform, our projects are going up. And these are 70% debt, 30% equity, World Bank guarantee or American government guarantee. We're founders of Power Africa. We'll be founders of the AFDB's Desert to Power program. We're looking for just a little bit more money in our platform, but we'll be operationally in the black by next year. And just to give you a sense of realism, 1,000 megawatts, which is what we have in our pipeline, is $1 billion. So it means 1 gigawatt, right? So 1,000 gigawatts, which is what, more than that is going to be deployed in the next X number of years in terms of renewable energy, is far more than $1 trillion. Now, we can't all do it ourselves, but I want to say the market forces are in our favor all over the place. And so we have the business model to hit not only the renewable energy goals in terms of the sustainable development goals, but also some of the development and the women's empowerment. There's a nexus with water and other things. So we're delighted. We signed today with the YK Center. We'll be putting our projects across sub-Saharan Africa up on momentarily, and we're looking for just a little bit, like an embarrassingly small amount more in our parent company.
Fantastic. This is a revolutionary guy. This guy in the middle is. Jeff earlier said, "What would it look like if I'm a pissed off person?" I think this is a competition. What can one pissed off person can do? Watch this guy. Do we need to make it by 2020? How did you come? Because I understand Professor Kahana's and our approach that we need to do. How did you come into this 2020 from your perspective?
Okay, well, first of all, as you know, I'm not a scientist. You know, I went to 3 colleges and never graduated. So that's my credentials. But in going after this thing, you know, once we realized that 20 years from now, most of the planet was going to look back and say, why didn't anybody tell us? Amassed these great team of scientists, and many of which, you know, in terms of the 600 scientists in the White House report, the IPCC report, the Mission 2020 report that recently came out, all of them say that 2020, right around there, is the break point, and that we need to dramatically reduce our rate of emission at that point, and at that point start to go down. So 2020 is the window. And so that's some of the, Hansen says it's more like 7 gigatons, some people say 10, 8 is pretty much in the average there. And then we broke it down to individual people and their individual footprint, and how could we bridge that 8 gigaton gap in 3 years.
So that's why 2020 is so crucial.
And because we just saw that for the most part, most people walk around like me, an ordinary person, and climate change is just big, complex, abstract, and by God, I hope somebody's handling it. And when we started going to all the conferences, and nothing against all that, but we really saw that that wasn't happening. And not only wasn't it happening, but people weren't telling ordinary people the truth. And when you ask them why, they'd say, we don't want to alarm people. And we say, if your house is on fire, you'll be alarmed for a while, but then you'll be able to do what needs to get done. And so we wanted to make it simple enough with all the scientific data so that it's rigorous, but that the ordinary person can actually understand this is where we are, this is where we need to be, this is what the gap is, and this is what all of us collectively, 500 million people is what the data says. If we get 500 million people to take the simple carbon-reducing actions in the next 3 years, as a global collective, we can actually bridge that 8 gigaton gap.
So you're going to be, you're actually managing a movement on the platform.
Yes.
So can you tell us about the movement you're
Yeah,
generating?
so the movement is, it's what we call empowerment. It's an to empower humanity. So the first thing is you give the information, this is what's happening. Then the second thing is you actually have an opportunity then to be responsible for that this isn't somebody else's problem, that this is mine. And I can actually own humanity, myself, my relationship with you, the whole ball of wax, right? And then the third thing, obviously, is what matters, which is action. So one of the things that we've developed is we have an app called the 2020 or Bust app. You download the app, and it puts you in what we call the game of the century. So we look at it like the biggest reality show ever. In 3 years, we find out if we're booted off the planet. So you go in there, you download the app, you say where you live, the actions that you're going to take, and then it gives you your budget, and then everybody else in the world that has the app and that's playing the game, it aggregates your whole budget, the global budget. So for example, if I don't eat a hamburger today, if that's the action I'm going to take, or reduce my meat intake, I don't eat a hamburger, I can see both what it does to my budget and what it did to the world, so that I can see on an individual basis, on my daily choice, the impact that it has on the global game.
The idea of us coming together and collaboratively working with people genius and people hearts and people ability to do something, I think it's the biggest privilege I have working with the team, because we really believe that in this game, it's not even better together. It's probably the only way is together. Better together is a niceties, but we are in a place today, the first day of the rest of our lives, counting down to the beginning, that together, us together is the only way for us. And I invite you all to participate with us. I thank you very much for being here. We're going to move on, and those gentlemen and ladies are going to be around. Please talk to them, find about the project. Let's make this market a real market. Thank you very much.